this just at the beginning. Welcome back to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I'm your host Bob Kerwin, and once again we are here with another Learning Clinic Meet the Candidates radio show. My guest today is Jean-Raymond Audet, who is running for the position of mayor of the city of Greater Sudbury. Now, I'm going to call Jean-Raymond JR from here on in, but JR, thanks for coming into the Learning Clinic. It's one of the things we're trying to do with this particular show is give people an opportunity to find out as much as they can about the candidates for the different positions, and I video record all of the shows so that I can keep them on the site so that at any time people want to come back, they can look at it. It's almost like a Meet the Candidates night where there's no limit as to what each candidate has a chance to say, and they can just express their opinion. So, JR, maybe let's start off by introducing yourself. Who is JR?
Well, like I was born in Cornwall, Ontario in 23rd of March 1958, and I went to French elementary school in Cornwall, but then my parents moved to Chapel, Quebec, which is on Alderman Island, close to Pembroke, Ontario, but on the other side of the Ottawa River. And there I went to, I could say, English high school in Quebec. That was just before Bill 22, so that's where, but then I came back and I did my grade 13 in Ontario, in Pembroke, because in those days we used to just finish our grade 11 in Quebec and then skip grade 12 and go to grade 13. And then I did my college education in Ontario. Like at Algonquin, I was an electronic engineering technician. I was also a registered practical nurse and also an MCOM, emergency medical care assistant. I went to Horn-Payne as an ambulance attendant orderly. That was back in 1987, 88. But then I hired on with Canadian National Railways and wound up in Capriel as a conductor. And like I said, I was diagnosed with epilepsy and I had issues with Canadian National Railways, and I won my human rights cases with them because in 2002 I had a relapse with my epilepsy, and the Canadian National Railways did not want to accommodate me then, so I had to take them to human rights, and I did win my case in 2006, and they accommodated me as a yardmaster's assistant in Capriel, but in 2009 they fired me, and I won my case in arbitration. But like I said, I still had some issues with the with my arthritis and that, since I had both my shoulders replaced and my hip, and I was still fired last year by.
Wow. So you've had a lot of experience in dealing with the systems all over the place.
Systems, and the problem is right now I've been cut off by Great West Life with their long-term disability, and I still have to, like I said, I'm pursuing my cause with Canadian National Railways.
And now you're running for the position of mayor.
Oh, well, as mayor, I'm just bringing out my cause. There's an issue because I brought my papers out on the 24th of June, and since I am a Franco-Ontarian and French, I believe that a lot of us Franco-Ontarians are having our services cut back lately because of the federal government, provincial government, and the municipal governments. Like the Bilingual Act is being cut back. We Franco-Ontarians are at least 30% of the Sudbury population, and I would say 40% regionally, and I feel that we're not as well treated as Anglo-Quebecers, and we should be. Like there's what you call the Regulation Act under the provincial government, and I don't see it's being applied or enforced.
So what do we have to do more in Sudbury?
In Sudbury, well, I am not going to say I would like to make Sudbury a bilingual city, but I will not say that I would like to shove it down people's throat. What I would like is bring a referendum saying, would you like to make Sudbury a bilingual city in, let's say, the referendum of 218, like they're having these store hours referendum this year.
What would be the benefit or the advantage? And I think people have to understand that Sudbury is not officially
Bilingual.
bilingual.
Exactly.
Despite the fact that most of the, or a lot of the communication is in both languages, but we're not officially bilingual.
Well, I wouldn't say that both, that I would say some of the writing
Some.
is in French, but like I said, I work out, let's say, at the YMCA and that, you only see some of the writings in French, but they don't have the flyers in French at all, they don't have anything. What they do is they say, well, all Franco-Ontarians speak English, so what do we need our services in French for?
Okay.
That's what they tell me all the time. And that's what they used to tell me at Canadian National Railways, which used to be under federal jurisdiction. They said, you don't need those services in French. And that's the problem.
Why are they not providing them? Is it cost? Is it?
Yes, I believe it costs. What they have now is like railways used to be, I know the Canadian National Railways used to be a Crown Corporation until 1995, and Cape Rail used to be what you call a bilingual terminal. But the problem with them is they went ahead and they slashed everything. I would say the Hunter Harrison effect, when Canadian National Railways became a private corporation. When they privatized it in 1995, then they expanded in 1998 when they bought Illinois Central, and then Mr. Harrison became president of CN in 2002. That's when they Americanized it. And that's the whole thing. And same thing, my biggest cause would be for Canadian, if I ever became mayor of Sudbury, would be to move the Canadian Pacific Rail Yard and the line that launches Ramsey Lake out of town. Because what happens, that is one of our largest sources of drinking water. And there's still, I would say, transporting dangerous goods in those DOT-3 cars.
You're not the first person who's brought this issue up about the potential for a disaster.
The problem is our federal government has deregulated our railway to a point that Lac Mégantic was not a so-called act of God. It was, and it will be.
It was a time bomb.
It is a time, and it will be a time bomb, especially with the tar sands in Alberta, with, I think, the transportation of bitumen in vast quantities. It's going to happen.
So what do we, is it possible to move those?
I think Canadian Pacific can move its yard, let's say the Cartier or something like this, on the outside of town, and to move the rail yard. They're making billions of dollars and in profits. I know Canadian National last year, in last quarter, made $600 million, and they have over $12 billion in assets. And
is it within our power?
Yeah.
As a city? This is a question, is it within our power as a city to force them to move?
I don't know if we can really force something that's under federal jurisdiction, but what we can do is ask, strongly ask, or make a demand of it.
And the safety aspect, well, it is important. It is our drinking water.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean,
that falls under the domain of the municipal government.
We're one disaster away.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What are some of the other issues that you see really important for us to address as we move forward? Because I mean, we could go through the whole gamut, the roads and everything, but
well, to me, it's the cutting back in. Well, like I said, I'll be voting no in the referendum when it comes to the on the rollback of our store hours. Like, I mean, when it comes to deregulate our store hours, Sudbury must remain one of the only cities in North America that really, that doesn't not bow down to the wishes of the business chamber of commerce of this town.
It's really a hot potato, eh?
Yeah.
But, and again, this is more of a question because, I've taken the position that, ward councillors really should have their hands tied, that the results of the referendum are the people speaking.
Yes.
And if a ward councillor is gonna speak on behalf of his constituents, and you have a referendum, I mean, it would be ideal to have a referendum for every issue, because then you would know exactly what your constituents want you to do. So I think, as a ward representative, my position is whatever the ward decides. And my personal position really should have no bearing in what I do at council, because I think it's gonna come up. I think it's, whether it's a 50% turnout or not, the motion has to come to the floor.
Yes.
And we're gonna have to decide.
But you have to know where the person stands on the so-called issue. That's what I believe. Yeah.
Possibly, I mean, as a person running for mayor, you're really, you're kind of like the manager of the group of 12, but what is it, I guess, what is it, since you've taken that position, what is it that you feel we have to protect by maintaining the status quo in the store hours?
Well, like I said, I'm more of a, what do you call I have a most of a socialist point of view. Like, I've seen politics now shift towards the right. Like, I see the conservatives as the Reform Alliance, and I see our liberals now become the progressive conservatives, and even our NDP now are old-time liberals. So really, there's nobody left on the left for us. That's what I'm maintaining. And I said, and now what they're preaching is what I call libertarian capitalism, where when it comes to taxes, they're giving is big business a tax cut. And the ones that are really paying the taxes are the so-called ones that, the poor, that are minimum wage, and they're the ones that are taking the biggest burden on society. Where I believe it's the big business that are making the large profits. They should be paying an incremental tax system. Like the rich that can afford for our infrastructure, our social programs, they should be paying, helping us pay for it. Like for Sudbury, I would never get rid of the Pioneer Manor or something like this. We must keep it so we can help our fellow man.
And I sense that there's at least one or two factions that want to get rid of a lot of these things.
Well, I have my opinion on that. To me, I shouldn't use that term because you'll have to apologize for me. I speak better French, and my understanding of French is better than my English. But
yeah, I'm sorry.
But that's the way I am. The one that comes to mind is Mr. Dan Malenza. He belongs to the so-called Greater Sudbury Taxpayers Association, and I call it a private coalition. I believe they're there to try to eradicate our so-called progressive society by trying to get rid of our social programs, our state-owned institutions, and what do we have? We're left with nothing. Even I would say probably our healthcare system. And driving our taxes to the very bottom.
I noticed the reports out recently about the job growth hasn't been as bright as people had hoped, and I guess the city council is going to be dealing tomorrow with a presentation that is predicting our assessment growth is
Yeah.
gonna be low for the next 3 or 4 years.
Like, in my case, the greatest job creators are crown corporations. But ever since NAFTA that came into effect in 1992, most of our crown corporations are gone. Like, I used to belong to Canadian National Railways. That used to be a giant crown corporation. When they privatized that in 1995, we had almost 100,000 men that used to depend on it. Next thing you know, 10 years later, we were less than 20,000 employees. It's amazing.
Mhm.
And the people at the top, like I say, when Paul Tellier, who was CEO of Canadian National Railways, at first was only getting $250,000 a year. Next thing you know, 10 years later, Hunter Harrison getting almost $85 million a year in salaries. That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean,
the gap is really wide.
and he's running it from Chicago. I mean,
Yeah. And I guess in Sudbury, we have so many people who rely on social services.
yes, we do.
And then I guess I know that our population is definitely aging. And I can see that there's gonna be a real need for city council to take a good look at whether we have enough facilities to provide for the future. And I guess a big decision that's gonna have to be made is, are we gonna get even more into the provision of places like Pioneer Manor, or are we gonna get out of it? And I think there's certain responsibilities that we have.
Well, the problem is if you give it over to the private sector, they're there to make profits from it. So
They
we're
have.
gonna lose out, on that quality of service, and that they're only there to make profit. So our poor parents and that are going to suffer, or we are going to suffer from those so-called services.
Yeah,
I mean,
when you're labor intensive, like the biggest part of your budget is labor, I guess there's only one place to cut, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, when you hear those horror stories about in those old age homes when the diapers only change, well, I wouldn't say, but I'm let's say exaggerating, once every day or something like this. But like I said, when you hear horror stories like that, that's unbelievable.
Yes, I know. So if we take a look then at Sudbury specific,
Yeah.
and we take a look at this social service, the socialist approach, where
Yeah.
we have to provide for the needs of citizens.
Well, the thing I would say is for our federal government and all that is to cancel all our free trade services, because Canada is very rich in natural resources. We could, refine them here. We could also manufacture them here, and then, have an enclosed society. I know we're next door to a giant American system, and they probably wouldn't like that. In the free market system, there's always a conflict. We could subsidize that like we're doing to our farm system, and it can work. Sure, we won't have billionaires, but I don't need billionaires that are heartless and won't care. I need millionaires that will pay their fair share in society, and that's what I want.
And I guess if we don't do something about keeping more of our revenue locally, then people are gonna have no choice, they're gonna have to move away, which is gonna affect our growth.
Yeah.
So it's, and I guess I'm concerned that if we are not a place that is meeting the needs of our senior citizens, then I don't think we're gonna be a place that's gonna attract youth either.
Well, let's take the issue of, let's say, our First Nations here on James Bay and Hudson's Bay. How come there's no highway that goes up to Moosonee? I mean, Ontario's rich enough to provide highways to go up there. We don't have it. On the Quebec side, they have one that goes halfway up the James Bay coast. But, and those Cree nations are doing not too bad. But on this side, and our federal government is not providing our First Nations with the need and the education that they provide, that they need. I mean, the plight of our First Nations it's appalling. They're in third world status.
How do we solve that?
Eh?
Do you have any ideas of how we can
Oh, well,
improve that on our own without needing the federal government to come in?
the federal government, it is
They
their
have
jurisdiction, and really, there should be a highway that goes up to James Bay and one that launches up Hudson Bay. Do you know that Hudson Bay is the second largest sea in the world after the Mediterranean? And we, in Ontario, have nothing that goes up there to show the people that.
We can't get there.
No, we can't get there. The only thing that goes up to Moosonee is the ONR. And the Polar Bear Express from Cochrane to Moosonee, I mean, they even abandoned the Northlander from Toronto or from North Bay. I mean, that was appalling.
I know. But we do have to serve First Nations people that move to Sudbury with our services.
Yes, we do. And every spring, they get flooded, and we're flying them out, and we're flying, I mean, how much does it cost to us in the long run?
Yeah.
To me, if we would do it in the first place, I think it would help the cost down quite a bit.
So that's another
Issue.
bit of lobbying that we have to do. with the federal government.
Lobbying, it's,
Like,
well,
being
to me,
aggressive, I guess.
to me, I think the people that, the biggest lobbyists are the so-called enterprise. They have I would say their foot in the Prime Minister's office right now, and they are, there's, what do they say that, they are, I can't think of the word is, they are cultivating what they've sown. That's,
Whether they like it or not, they cultivate it.
well, I,
They may not like the harvest, but they're cultivating it.
yeah.
So what else we got going? You're, you put your name in June?
Yeah, well, it's the 24th of June, as you've seen that date, it's that Saint Jean Baptiste
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah.
It's for us Franco, or I should say Francophones, like it's very important in Quebec, and it's also very important for French Canadians outside of Quebec, and there's a certain importance to that.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you haven't mentioned yet specific we can do to make the Francophone sector of Greater Sudbury more, I guess, better service through what we're doing, or is this a larger issue?
To me, it's a kind of a larger issue. To me, like I said, to make Sudbury a bilingual city would be the cause. But like I said, I'm not there to. It would be a referendum. It's that way. I'm not going to shove it down people's throats and just let them vote on it. If they wish not to have it, then it is so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
quite possible it could be
Yeah.
a referendum
No.
issue. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing, so do you?
Well, I remember even going.
I guess here's another question. Is this something that needs a referendum, or is this something that the council can approve? Do you need something more? Do you have to get the province to approve an official designation as being a bilingual city?
Well, even Ottawa is not a bilingual city.
Okay, really?
There, see? And Ottawa is our nation's capital.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, see? That's the whole thing. And you would expect Ottawa to be our bilingual city, and it is not.
That's surprising.
That is surprising.
Didn't know that.
No, you didn't know
I
that.
didn't know that at all. Obviously, you can't talk running for mayor without talking about the whole issue of accountability and transparency and things like that. Like, any thoughts on?
What do you mean, what, the Auditor General there, Mr. Brian Bigger or something like that? Well, to me, the position should always be there to keep the so-called mayor and his and the councillor and other people accountable to the office and to the council and also to the people of Sudbury. There's no problem with that. To me, you don't want them So-
I'm a school board trustee,
Yeah.
and I wish we had an auditor. And I know now we are gonna have an ombudsman, I know we are now gonna have an ombudsman.
Yeah.
And for 4 years, I've always said, I wish we had one. Not necessarily so that the public would know that, trustees are doing their job, but for the protection of trustees
Yeah.
who want to possibly have some third party come in and investigate how things are going on. Because to me, having the availability of a third party to come in and do a completely unbiased report, and I
Yeah.
think that's the issue. An
Yeah.
ombudsman is supposed to say, okay, here's what I reported on, and they're supposed to leave it.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to get involved in a political debate as to
Exactly.
whether you're supposed to accept what they have given you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, in the past, some of the issue with, I guess it's Andre Marin has come in, where he's actually engaged in a debate with the councilors, and so, well, why are you not listening to what I'm telling you to do? And it's like, well, you're supposed to give us a report.
Mm-hmm.
We then take it under advisement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you get into this issue, especially, and even with the Auditor General, it's, give us your report, tell us what you're finding, and leave it.
Yeah.
That's all you do. We have to then, as a council, say, okay, this is the report, what are we gonna do with it?
But the thing is the people you do choose for that position, they do have some, what do you call it, some political.
They've got some influence,
Yeah.
they've got some influence,
Yes.
and I think that's where, the whole issue, I don't think it's a matter of should we be transparent, I think absolutely we should
Yeah.
be transparent, we should be having all of our meetings in public.
Yeah, they
But
should.
there are some that can't be because of the personal privacy.
Yeah.
And that's just the law. You've been involved in the union, you've been involved with, trying to deal with, grievances and arbitrations and human rights. I mean, there's certain things that have to be done behind closed doors because they're such sensitive issues that, you're running into potential legal liability.
Well, I would have a little a different point of view in that. The problem is, I think everything should be open. The only problem is when you have a prelude to it and then the people tries to swing. I know people always comes up to, I guess when they view things with their own political view and their own, I call it political baggage. And it's hard to break away from it, I know.
To have somebody who's totally unbiased on all topics.
You can't.
If you've got a history,
Yeah.
if you've been breathing, you're
Yeah.
gonna have some kind of a bias.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a tough position. The role of mayor seems to have been coming up, even if it's coming up indirectly, the role of mayor is kind of, I think it's gonna be an issue as we get into October. And I think there's two kind of points of view. One is that the mayor is one of 13, and it's the person who's supposed to try and coach the team.
Yeah.
And the other is that the mayor is the only one who is voted by the entire city, and the mayor therefore should be kind of leading
Yeah.
the team.
Well, I would say your sports analysis, more like into the football now. She is what you call part of the team, but like the quarterback, she is the person. She decides the plays and that, and the so-called, what aspect the town, or I mean the city will go into if, and see if she can get the counselors to go with her early.
But if the players disagree with the play call,
Well, then,
players
and you
are-
don't have a play.
the players are the ones that have to catch the ball.
That's right, exactly.
And it's so that's where I like the analogy of quarterback.
Yeah.
There's generally that quarterback who knows the skills of his team.
Yeah.
And the quarterback then is going to be the one that has to make sure that you throw the ball to the person who can catch the ball.
That's right.
And so I like that analogy. But yeah, it does seem as if this whole leadership issue of who is gonna be the best person to bring the council back together again
Mhm.
is gonna rise to the forefront.
I think so.
And, I don't know, have you had any discussions with people since you registered, or? do you
No,
know
I
where-
haven't. I
where-
don't, like I said, I don't see myself as the favorite. I see other people, like, I would say Mr. Rodriguez, Mr.